Jessie with Calvert Library. Thank you so much for joining me today for an episode of It's Elementary. Today we will be reading a story called Lights, Camera, Alice! The thrilling true adventures of the First Woman Filmmaker. This story is written by Mara Rockliff and illustrated by Simona Ciraolo. This book is also shared with the permission of Chronicle Books, so a big thank you to them. So now let's get on with our story.
Once there was a little girl named Alice, and she lived on stories. Her grandmère fed her folk tales as she stirred the cherry soup. Her nursemaid spun colorful yarns as she helped button up her boots. Nestled with the books her papa sold, she warmed herself on stories full of laughter and surprises, romance and adventure, thrills and heartache. She couldn't wait to find out what would happen next. Then, a terrible catastrophe. Earthquake! Fire! Robbers! The family business was in ruins. Finally, and worst of all, her papa died. Now there was no money to buy soup or boots, so Alice learned to type, and she went out to look for work. Alice heard about a job opening at a camera company. But when she went to see the man in charge, he frowned. "This is an important post," he said. "I fear, mademoiselle, that you may be too young." "But, monsieur," Alice replied, "I will get over that." The man laughed. Alice got the job. The Great Discovery. One day, Alice and her employer went to see a brand new type of camera. The inventors turned a crank and a picture appeared. A moving picture. Soon, the camera company was selling the new cameras, and they were a sensation. Imagine, anything that happened could be caught on film to see again, magnifique, and again, phenomenal, and again, oh, pardon-moi. Alice liked the moving picture camera, but she thought it could be put to better use. Anybody could walk down the street and see workers leaving a factory or a train pulling into a station. Why not film something special? Why not film a story? Starting something. Alice searched for costumes, cooked up sets, and found people to play the parts. At first, Alice's films were used to show customers what the new camera could do. But it turned out they liked her moving pictures even more than moving picture cameras. Why, they would even pay to see a story on a screen. Making movies was exciting, but it wasn't easy. Actors could be troublesome. Curious passerby got in the way. Scenes might not always go as Alice planned. But then, who didn't love a good surprise? Imagination. Alice found more and more ways to surprise her audience. Run the film backward, and voila! Falling down turned into flying up. Stop the camera to move a hat. Up here, down there, now over there. And on screen, the hat would dance along the streets and rooftops as if it had been bewitched. Alice's movies came alive with color and sound. The very first talking pictures. Rival movie makers hired spies to sneak onto Alice's movie sets and steal her stories. But she always came up with more. Alice was unstoppable until her great adventure. She lost her heart to a young cameraman, and they sailed off together to a distant land. America. To Alice, Les Américains seemed very strange. They thought a man named Thomas Edison invented moving pictures. They crowded into Nickelodeons to ooh and ah at movies with no sound, no color, not even a dancing hat. Strangest of all, Americans had never heard of her, Alice. By now, Alice was busy with a baby, but something had to be done. She took her baby and got back to work. She was not afraid. Alice would do anything to make her movies more exciting. Blow up a pirate ship? Why not? Crawl into a tiger's cage? Of course. She asked her leading lady to leap off a bridge onto a speeding train. She tied up her leading man, then sent in hungry rats to rescue him by chewing through the ropes. It turned out that Americans were not so strange. They loved stories full of laughter and surprises, romance and adventure, thrills and heartache. And they couldn't wait to see what Alice would come up with next. Alice built a modern movie studio across the river from New York, 4 stories high, with glass walls to let in the sun. Only the very best would do, for Alice meant her studio to last. And then, everything changed. Americans lose jobs. Our boys march off to war. Spanish flu sweeps the country. Millions fall ill. A severe test. Thanks to pioneers like Alice, movies had become big business. Now, big business took over the movies. And suddenly, Alice's sparkling new studio seemed tiny and old-fashioned, and a long way from a place called Hollywood. Audiences dwindled. Money disappeared. Even her husband ran away to Hollywood. Alice watched sadly as her studio was auctioned off. Then she took her children and sailed back to France. When the tide turns. Alice had no studio, no actors, no costumes, no sets, not so much as a movie camera. But she was still the girl who lived on stories. And she had one last story left to tell. It was a story full of laughter and surprises, romance and adventure, thrills and heartache. Alice's story had everything, except, of course, an ending. And she couldn't wait to see what happened next. If you'd like to learn more about Alice, you can read this page here included in the back of the book. Wow, I learned so much about the history of filmmaking from this book. I hope you learned something too. And now we're going to do a fun activity where we can create our own sort of animation using a technique similar to what they used to use to animate films, a technique that Alice used for some of the special effects in her movies. We're going to make an animation flip book. And so for this, it's really easy. You don't need a lot of tools at all. All you need is some paper. For this, it's really easy to use a pack of sticky notes, but you can also use some note cards or something that you could staple together on one side. And then a pen or a pencil. You could also practice in pencil, go over it in pen if you want. And we're going to make our own flip book. I have a little one here. So in the next clip, I'll do a close-up of it and show you how to make your own. So here I have my little example of a flip book. And the whole idea behind this is that each page has a little drawing on it that is just a little bit different from the previous page. So then when you put them all together, it creates a little scene. And this is a technique used for animation. This is just kind of a simplified version of it. So I have a little story here of a poor kid who loses his balloon and has a happy ending. So when you put it all together, it creates a little scene. Happy ending. So to make our own, we have our little pad here, and you're actually going to start on the last page because this is the beginning. And it's really simple. We're just going to draw a scene with a ball. So we're just going to have a little dot down in the corner, a little ball, and then we go to the next page, and you draw the same circle but a little bit further up the page. And I'll try to make them all look similar, as similar as I can. You can make it as complicated as you want. You can draw flowers in the background and use colors and do whatever you want. To make your little scene. Okay, it's as easy as that. And then we can put it all together and see our ball bounce across the page. Cute. It's so simple and a fun little activity you can do, so I hope you try it at home and get creative.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you keep an eye on Calvert Library's social media for more fun activities to do at home. Bye!